Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I actually wanted to go over some attributes that you may have that actually puts you ahead of most men. So, the first one is actually that you ask for feedback as well as that you follow through with this feedback. It can be anything. I think a lot of people really like giving unsolicited advice, and a lot of people just give that because they, sometimes they want to say that they know what they're talking about or they feel motivated because of something they've experienced. And that can push people away, people who give unsolicited advice. But a lot of times what I notice when someone asks for feedback, a lot of people are taken aback because they're so comfortable being the driver of that conversation. When someone gives unsolicited advice, sometimes it's a power struggle. They like to feel like they know what they're doing. And that's just something that I've noticed. But when someone asks for feedback, actually, they're the ones that's the driver of the conversation because they're saying, I need feedback in this. What's your perspective? A lot of times people don't actually know what to say about this, or they might not give you the actual feedback you're looking for. But what I mean about these types of men is regardless of what they're looking for, they specifically ask for feedback from people that they trust, as well as people they want to learn from. They're not asking feedback from random people. They're asking for feedback. Let's just say we were giving an example of a business. They are talking to other businessmen. How do you do your business? What's your portfolio look like? How are you getting clientele? Things like that. And they're asking for specific feedback. And those types of men, they bond with one another and they respect one another. They build up each other instead of giving advice or feedback without actually being asked. And so these men, not only do they ask for feedback, they are appreciative of giving feedback, and they don't just give their information to anyone who's listening. They appreciate the real, concrete truth of receiving feedback. And so asking for feedback, among other things regarding feedback, that's the first one. So let's talk about our community. It's a subscription-based community, and it's for general mental health. We're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about research. I'm probably going to put prompts on there, worksheets, and some of the prompts are going to be video format, just like me sharing the prompts. Another time it might be typed. I also might share like some blog posts or some writing that I've been doing that is research, and there's going to be reference pages. I might also show like portions of research papers and things like that, and then we can discuss about things like that. We can talk about emotional skills, regulation, coping. We can talk about hypothetical case studies, but of course, this is not therapy. It's also not school. It's just like psychoeducation. It's just informational purposes. We're not going to diagnose anyone, but we can talk about like potential case studies, things like that. We can talk about interpersonal dynamics. And so I really wanted a space for mental health. So that's the community that we have. Like I'd mentioned, it's a subscription based. That is pinned in the comments. It is priced at $10 a month, and I want it to be something that, it has a paywall so that not everyone has access to it, so that the community stays, more specific to those who actually have interest in this stuff. But I also want it to be accessible to most people. So that's why I chose that price range, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. And yeah, I'll also share things about myself, and you guys can share as well. And so I'll see you there. The next one is emotional regulation. So this research in 2022 reviewed 15 studies on, I want to say like group-based emotional regulation interventions. And the best way to put it is how people behave in lots of different settings, how they regulate themselves, not just by themselves, but also among other peoples and all other people. And pretty much all of these studies, most of them, showed that any sort of intervention where they're trying to regulate their own emotions improved their psychological distress. So it reduced their psychological distress, and any interventions of the individuals, the providers, also for some of the research, improve those emotional regulation skills for these individuals. And what we saw is we actually reviewed that as these individuals showed more healthier emotional regulation strategies, it actually linked to better mental health outcomes, but also outcomes for their own life. They have a reduction of interpersonal distress, distress in general, and those who have emotional suppression without regulation actually are associated with greater emotional dysregulation and interpersonal difficulties. And so I think that's very interesting. And these particular interventions, you can look at the research, but it doesn't really matter because overall what we're really looking at is emotional regulation Just this is definitely we need more research on this because it's 2022 and there's 15 studies, but to be honest, that's still a small sample and there's definitely more we can look at. But the reason why I picked this particular one is because we actually see that there is a true indication between someone who's emotionally regulated and their overall life outcome and their satisfaction with themselves over time. Again, this is something that we still need to touch on, and there's still a lot we can look at, but this is an interesting find and I think it's promising. I personally do. Okay. The next one is you don't really avoid difficult conversations. So this is very important. A lot of people avoid difficult conversations because there is a risk of rejection in difficult conversations. There is a risk of making a fool out of yourself. There's a risk of maybe saying something that you regret and you have to apologize. It's also that you may hear something you just don't want to hear. And nobody really enjoys difficult conversations, not necessarily if they're genuine about those conversations. However, a lot of people do actually enjoy the outcome once they navigate it and they're comfortable with doing so. The other part of this is also they're comfortable instigating these difficult conversations. And so that means if there's something bothering you and you've kind of reviewed it with yourself and you're realizing, okay, in reality, I think I need to have a conversation about this. I don't think it's something I can handle by myself. Let me have a conversation. Let me communicate this. And that's a difficult moment. You have that entryway for that conversation. And regardless of how the other person takes it, you showed confidence that you feel that you can have this conversation regardless of what the person is like. And that's difficult because having a difficult conversation, especially someone who is dysregulated, sometimes it can be hard. So I understand you need to steer clear of those types of people. But in general, if you find yourself a little bit comfortable challenging some people or other people that you feel you can trust, those difficult conversations can be beneficial. The next one is you don't speak indirectly or you don't play off something that you mean seriously as a joke. A lot of people do this and it shows insecurity typically. For example, let's just say you're asking for a discount of something. You might say, oh, maybe you should give it to me for free, and you're giving like a joke. And they're not really sure if you're joking or not. And maybe in actuality, you're saying, I just can't afford it. Is there anything we can do? That is a more open and honest conversation. You can say, I'm interested in this product, but I genuinely cannot afford it. I can afford something closer to this amount. Is there somewhere we can meet in the middle? See, that's an open, honest, and direct conversation. Playing it off as a joke just comes across really, it's gonna land pretty poorly typically. And a lot of people do it, but a lot of men who are not like that, they stand out. The next one is taking accountability. A lot of people in general, it's hard to take accountability. I think all of us can admit we've struggled with that at one point in the past. And that's the main point of a lot of these these points. There are things that you might do because you picked it up from many different ways and you've worked really hard to undo those things. Accountability is one of those things. Maybe when you're younger, it was hard for you to take accountability. I think most of us do. When I was a teenager, it was something I struggled with. However, I worked hard to take accountability and recognize it just makes me a better person, and I like taking accountability. And I think a lot of you guys can relate. Taking accountability feels good. It does. It's hard, but it does feel really good. And it does give you the opportunity to adjust something that you actually don't like about yourself, if it applies. The next one is discuss past mistakes and how you learned from them. All of us have past mistakes, and sometimes discussing those things when appropriate and expressing how you learn from them can show that you stand out. It shows leadership qualities, but it also motivates other people, which is a very nice touch. The next one is you don't take everything personally. Taking things personally can be really challenging, I think, especially nowadays, because so many people are so comfortable just insulting you for no reason, even if they don't know you. It happens a lot. And the reality is those types of individuals, they're unstable. And if you take things personally, to some extent, you're accepting instability as normal or common or healthy is a better word. I know you guys don't like normal. I have to be careful because there's a lot of words you guys don't like. And sometimes me censoring my words just make it more difficult for me to share what I'm trying to share, because all the time when I'm making videos, I'm always like, okay, someone's going to get mad about this. Someone's going to get mad about that. And so sorry about that. What was I saying? Yes, taking things personally, a lot of times it can be challenging because a lot of people might actually direct something at you. But you being aware of yourself and realizing it's not about you, even if they're directing at you, it's more about them, that can help. And you can also vet the difference between someone who actually genuinely wants to help you because they care about you and someone that is just trying to tear you down, or they have their own dysregulation. Because the reality is there are like a lot of strangers will say random things to you, but no matter what, they don't know you. And so it's something to keep in mind. A lot of people do not know you. The only people that know you are the people that you let in, your loved ones. Maybe some of you guys don't have anyone that really knows you. And so it's a balance between who you trust and who you can take personally and who you cannot take personally in terms of what they're saying. And the last one is you're consistent when nobody is watching. I think a lot of these things really show that men are ahead. The research I was talking about is 2022, and there's some attributes that maybe you have been working on for a while and you're proud of. And I think it's a reflection of, the journey you've been through. I don't think all of these things happen without hard work, which is why I believe most men do not have these characteristics. Part of the reason why I think this is important is because being this type of man is not easy. Being this type of person is not easy. It takes a lot of hard work. And I think that's important. One perspective I look at it is anyone who's started a business or has a business, right? The beginning couple months, couple years even, depending on the business, can be really challenging. There's a reason why a lot of people don't do it, because it's very discouraging. It's really hard. And a lot of times you're going to want to give up, or you feel like you're not sure what you're doing. You feel lost. You might not have any guidance because it's uncommon compared to, let's say, people who are working under somebody or under a company. This is kind of similar to this type of man. These are things that don't happen overnight, and you will be discouraged a lot because it's different and people are not accustomed to that. Hope this video is helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.